Brilliant. We should now be live. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us. We will be starting in exactly 3 seconds. Let me retweet the tweet first, actually.
Still not live for me. Let's refresh. There we are. Mute.
Hey, Dan, you going to retweet the tweet? Or
Nope. Dude, it's a month now.
I know.
And I've even had people on Twitter supposedly escalate my ticket. I filed 2 more tickets, I think. Nothing.
That sucks.
It's never coming back.
Oh, well.
Okay, you're like, oh, well, I don't care.
I'm not verified. Not my problem.
Less competition.
I'm at the bottom of the competition anyway. I have the least followers out of everyone. I have 21,000, I think.
Oh, still not bad.
No. But if you're listening, follow me on Twitter at Zach Bowden. It's there on the screen. Let's inflate those numbers. Right, I am ready to go when you are.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, let me just bring up everything again. RTX. Bring up the notes. And voice recorder. Okay. I get my voice ready. I still don't have my voice 100%, but it's all right. I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Ooh, that was a little slurry. Try that again. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Windows Central podcast, episode 206 for November 27th, 2020. Hey, everybody. Daniel Rubino joined with Zach Bowden, and we're doing another exciting Windows Central Black Friday podcast. Don't worry. Have you heard there are deals out there? We're going to tell you about every single one. Actually, we're not. We're not going to really talk about deals. I'm going to actually mention maybe one just because I wrote a review, and I want my hard work to pay off. But if you are interested in deals on Windows Central right now, there are a lot that are relative to our audience. That is PC focused, routers, all that kind of jazz. So it is a good time to buy stuff if you need it. And if you guys have questions about that stuff too, leave them in the questions now. We'll tell you about them later and stuff like that. But this week, the main podcast will actually focus on some really exciting stuff. For one, late breaking news. We're going to live talk about this thing. And if you're watching the video, you can actually see what I'm holding in my hand here. If you're not, you're listening to the audio, I am holding the Lenovo X1 Fold, the ThinkPad X1 Fold, I should say. Yes, the first foldable PC. And it is a foldable PC. Don't say laptops fold. They don't. Hate that. Even Lenovo says it's the world's first foldable PC. It is here. It is in my hands. This is the review unit. Literally just got it in a box. All I've done is turned it on and folded it, which is pretty awesome. But I haven't got to mess with it at all. So we'll quickly talk a little bit about that. Why is the PlayStation 5 beating the Xbox Series X? So this was a big hubbub this week. And for all you console nerds out there, we'll kind of talk about that, what that means. Rumor, Zach, we teased this last week, and Zach has finally now written his article on it. Yes, Microsoft is unofficially, according to our sources, officially, trying to bring Android apps to Windows 10 through the store. So all you neckbeards out there should be very excited about this. We'll let Zach, of course, explain what's going on there. And I'm going to do my own little rant about why I think this is actually a dumb idea. I mean, it's no harm, no foul having Android apps. It's not like Windows got worse because of it. So I'm not telling them not to do it. I'm just not that excited about it, but it's whatever. We'll also talk about Surface Pro 8 and Laptop 4 rumors. So those are finally coming up. And yeah, we're expecting a mild refresh sometime maybe even in January. So Zach will fill us in on what he knows about that. And what else do we have? Well, we have tons of things. I'm going to talk about Eufy because I did that review. That was the deal thing I was talking about. Edge news. So Honey and the Great Suspender, what's going on with Edge. And we'll also, of course, do the thing of the week. I actually do have a thing of the week. Zach doesn't really have a thing of the week, but he kind of does. We're We're getting better there, folks. But let's jump right into it. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm not too bad. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. I didn't completely quarantine. Me and the other half, my other spouse there, we went to our best friend's house. It was just four of us. We've all been tested, though. He works at a school. He gets tested every few days, so he's negative. And she works in a lab, so she gets tested. So we're clear, but it was just four of us. It was nice. We made they're vegan. I'm not vegan, but I partake. We have vegan cooking stuff here. So I made a few vegan dishes, which was actually good. It was the first Thanksgiving I actually kind of didn't feel horrible and hated myself afterwards for eating all the food. It was actually healthy and it was actually really good. And I cooked. I almost never actually cook.
Wow.
I get no satisfaction from cooking. I don't know about you. I don't find much talent in it either. It's literally just I read directions. I did what the piece of paper told me to do. I actually hated going to the supermarket and trying to find pure ingredients because being a guy, I don't know where anything is in the supermarket. I know like the basics, but like trying to find leeks, I was like, I've seen leeks before, but I couldn't find them. But it was okay. But it was a fun night. What about you? You're obviously in UK, so you don't get to
Yeah, it was just a normal Thursday for us, really. Did normal work, ate a normal dinner, didn't see family. We usually reserve that for next month, something called Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what we're waiting for.
Yeah, it's going to be obviously an interesting time the next month. Unfortunately, in the United States, things are getting pretty bad. I haven't changed any of my habits since like March. Like I'm basically quarantined outside of occasionally dropping a package off of FedEx and going to the supermarket. But that's all I ever do. So I am not messing around with this stuff. I don't like getting sick. I never get sick, and I don't plan on getting sick.
Did you hear there's like 4 different vaccines on the way?
That's true. And listen, when they come, I'll get them. That's fine. I'll wait a little while, but being I'm not a high priority or high risk category either, it's going to be a while before I get that. So I'm just going to ride out winter doing what I always do, which is be a hermit. And I'm actually totally fine with that. It's actually weird to me, sociologically speaking, how a lot of people, like, they need to see other people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they need to be their families. And they're like, oh, on one level, I understand that. But at my core level, my personality doesn't. I'm like, why? Just quarantine and be by yourself. It's awesome. Like, why do you need other people? You can talk so much less. But that's that. Let's go to the big news, though. Let's talk about the Lenovo X1 Fold. This thing is awesome. This is next to this, which if you're, again, listening to the audio, I'm holding it next to the Surface Duo, are some of the 2 most exciting things that have come out this year. Just really looking at the future of what's computing is going to be like. Doesn't mean you should buy either one of these on day one. Obviously, first gen, there's going to be things to work out. But, Lenovo has been working on this for almost as long as Duo has been in development, and Andromeda and stuff like that. I believe it's probably at this point going on 4 years. They've been working on this internally, specifically with the display technology, which I believe they work with Sharp. This is an OLED display, which is pretty awesome. But what makes this device different, and to be honest, I got to bring up the specs on it because I don't even know what they are. What makes this device different is it supports inking. This is the first foldable display, because that was always, I wrote an article a while ago saying one of the drawbacks of foldable displays versus dual is inking. Like, so far, the Samsung Galaxy Fold doesn't do inking, which to me is such a weird thing, because you have the Note. The Note's okay. The Note's a brilliant device in terms of hardware, but when it comes to the inking, the pen is fantastic, but it's such a small surface to write on. It actually makes it hard. Whereas you would think something like the Fold 2 would be brilliant for inking, and yet you can't do that. But this device you can. So this is, let's go through the specs. 13.3-inch flexible QXGA display. That's a 2048 by 1536 OLED. 4:3 aspect ratio, which is our kind of favorite. 4:3, 3:2, 16:10. Anything that's not 16:9 we like here. It's supposed to have a DCI-P3 rating of 95%. That's very high. By comparison, a premium ultrabook, if a premium ultrabook hits 78% DCI-P3, that's very good. That also means this should be 100% sRGB. The processor is really interesting. This is the Intel Core processor with Intel hybrid technology. It's a Core i5. This is the Lakefield stuff. So this is their new 10 nanometer, big, small core kind of stuff.
Oh, so
obviously,
is it the same chip that was supposed to ship in the Neo?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So. Yeah. So this is like their. I don't think this will still compete with Apple's M1, of course.
No.
But this is Intel's attempt at creating sort of the smallest chipsets it can based on its core technology. Mm-hmm. How good is it? Obviously, I haven't even tested it at all. I'm not expecting, it's not going to beat a Core i7 11th gen, the 15 or the 28 watt ones, obviously, but it should be good enough. 8 gigabytes of DDR4X RAM at 4267 megahertz. That's very fast RAM. That is the sort of next gen. God, RAM has just really gone through the roof in terms of performance. Up to a 1 terabyte PCIe NVMe storage on this. 5 megapixel front-facing camera. It's supposed to, it used to have IR, but I heard it doesn't now have Windows Hello. I don't know. I got to verify that yet still. You have 2 USB Type-C ports. One is Gen 1, one's Gen 2. Both support display out, power, and all that kind of stuff. A SIM card, although I believe this one doesn't have 5G in it, although 5G got delayed in PCs, by the way. They were supposed to be this fall. HP had a bunch of laptops with 5G coming out. Dell, I believe, had a few too with the, the Latitude 9, 10, 40. I don't know which one it is. It's one it's a really nice Latitude. But I feel like something happened with 5G in laptops where the production got pushed back. The only 5G laptop is still Lenovo's Flex 5G. But this will have a 5G option, which that's pretty awesome, as well as LTE. Dolby Atmos speaker system. Battery is supposed to be up to 11 hours. You know what that means. If that's up to 11, if I get 6 hours, I'd actually be pretty happy with this. That's like real world usage. It's a 50 watt hour battery, which is actually pretty decent size and does support rapid charge. Weighs 2.2 pounds or 999 grams. Active pen included. And what makes this device really awesome, of course, is this right here. So, and I haven't even paired this yet. This is if you're watching again on the video, I'm showing it up. This is the Bluetooth keyboard that comes with it. This is what actually makes this device, I think, super cool. So, Bluetooth keyboard. Does it have it? I thought it has a charging port. It does have a charging port on it, micro USB.
Oh, goodness.
But see, that's just there just in case. They thought of everything. So this attaches to this device. When you fold it in half, you drop it on the second bottom half. It sticks magnetically to those them thick bezels, as everybody's going to, of course, point out. But those bezels have the magnets and stuff. This attaches, but it wirelessly charges when connected, which is nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
And it gets like 8 hours per charge. And when it's in there, you can just fold it closed like a book and carry it around with you.
So it has a pen. But it still requires Bluetooth to connect to the device and function.
Yes. So
that's a shame.
Yes, but I heard who's that? Michael Fisher. So Michael Fisher, Mr. Mobile, tune in to his channel tonight, Friday. If you're listening to this recorded, just go check it out. He has one too, and his video should go live tonight. But I heard that the latency is very low. I heard it doesn't feel like a Bluetooth keyboard.
Right.
They really tuned it up. And you can use the keyboard on screen, as I mentioned. So it's like a mini laptop, a clamshell laptop. Mm-hmm. But you can also prop it up because this has a built-in kickstand, which I'll show here because I haven't even opened this before. Here it is. This is the kickstand. It's actually a new kickstand. They've actually revised this from when I first saw this device. They made it a little bit bigger. So you got this awesome flip-out kickstand. So you can then just mount this thing up as like a full tablet and then use the keyboard wirelessly in your lap, on the desk, whatever you want. And that's what makes this device so interesting. It's all the different postures. It's a big tablet. You can use it like a book. You can use it as a mini laptop. On the airplane, this is going to be awesome for watching movies. How good is it? Will I make use of this form factor? That's the $1,000,000 question, and that's what you have to tune into my review for. Follow me on Instagram, Daniel_Rubino. I'll be posting photos of it as well as some of my thoughts. Check out Fisher's video. Marquez Brownlee did a video, MKBHD. He has a video already on it. Really good video too. He really kind of walks through the different postures, and he was really impressed by it too. So I don't know.
So what's most interesting to me about this, of course, is that this device was supposed to be a Windows 10X device.
Yes.
But because of the delay, Lenovo decided to just ship it without Windows 10X. They were always going to offer a Windows 10 Pro version anyway, but now because 10X is delayed, the Windows 10 Pro version is the only version that you can buy for now. I assume they will eventually release a 10X version because I think they demoed 10X on it back at CES earlier this year.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something it can do, and I hope Lenovo still delivers on that when 10X is ready. I don't see why they wouldn't, but we'll have to wait and see. Because $3,000 for a Windows 10X device, it's going to be that's pretty expensive, especially considering 10X when it launches will be targeted at mid to low range laptops. $3,000 is nowhere near mid to low range. That's above premium. that's new tier ultra premium territory.
Yeah, and listen, Lenovo is realistic about this. When this finally went on sale, they're like, we're going to make basically a limited run of these.
Sure.
They don't expect one of these on everybody's Christmas tree this year. This is early adopter technology. Mm-hmm. This is Gen 1. You're hardcore. You have the cash. You want something really new and radical. And listen, I think there's a lot of productivity advantages here. This size is incredible. I mean, it's a chunky little boy, but it's a book, right? This is effectively like holding, and I love it. It's kind of like Surface Book. Like it does have that wedge shape to it, but that's so you can fit the keyboard. I mean, it's both for the hinge, but it's also so you can fit the keyboard in between. But this is remarkable, right? We're going to look back at this moment and be like, yeah, that was the first. That was the one that started this. Even if you don't see the practicality of it, I'm confident in 5 years, this is just going to be the way a lot of devices work. Not all of them. Some people will still need a 15-inch full-on laptop with a graphics card, but stuff like this is definitely leading to the future. The stuff you're talking about Windows is super interesting because clearly this device has been in the works for years, as I mentioned. And because of that, it's actually rugged built. This isn't a delicate device. The ThinkPad labeling on it implies that they do drop tests, military standard spec tests, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it's indestructible, but I'm saying it's not it's not like Surface Duo. Surface Duo does have a certain delicateness to that. This is supposed to be pretty rugged. They're very confident in the hinge. They've revised things. They've used the time between CES when they showed it off and now. One of the cool things, of course, it has this leather case on it, which just feels really immaculate. And you can see it's got this nice little space here. They even put the Core i5 sticker on the outside, which of course you just peel it off if you don't like it. But then when you open it up, that leather case shifts around, so now it covers the entire back. It's just it's a real mechanical feat of engineering. The display it's a beautiful display. I mean, you can kind of see it there. It does have you can see a little bit of crease in the center, but not really, to be honest.
It's not as bad as the Galaxy Fold.
No, I don't believe so.
I don't think that's probably because the crease isn't as dramatic as it is on the Galaxy Fold. The reason why the crease on the Galaxy Fold is as bad as it is because the actual bend is so tight, so they can keep it as thin as possible. Because that's a PC you've got in your hands, they don't have to fold it as strictly. It could be a little more relaxed fold, and as such, it's a bigger fold, and that's why the device is quite thick. But you get less of a crease down the middle as a result. Can you just quickly check if it has Windows Hello Face? Because if it doesn't, that's a real disappointment.
It doesn't.
That's incredible. I can't believe
we couldn't find a camera compatible with Windows Hello Face.
Oh man, has it got fingerprint?
I don't believe so.
Jeez Louise.
Let's see.
This is Gen 1 for you. It's excellent in some
Yeah, that
areas,
was
not great in others.
yeah, and that was a I remember back at CES why I asked about that. And I was told no, it will. But
They failed.
apparently they
They
had to make some
failed.
cuts. They had to make some cuts.
Boycott Lenovo. They failed and lied to us.
Yeah, it's an interesting device. That's for. I'm really curious about how if I how I'm going to start using this. How
Yeah. So it
I
would be
want
even
to
more
use it.
interesting if the Neo had chips, because there would be direct comparisons between that and the Neo, because that's the
Sure.
same argument we're having right now with the Duo and the Galaxy Fold. Single screen fold versus dual screen fold. And I would have loved to have seen it in the PC space, because I'd see, it's interesting. On phones, I think dual screen makes more sense. But on
Mm.
PCs, I think it's the opposite. I think single screen fold makes more sense, because that bigger screen allows you to have a more immersive. Because on phones, like since it's Android, we've talked about this before. On Android, apps aren't very good at big screens, and a single screen foldable just means you just got a big screen, and apps just don't take advantage of that very well. But on PCs, apps do. So a single screen makes much more sense there, in my opinion. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and the whole Windows 10 thing you're mentioning is it is super fascinating because when I first saw this device, it was like secret. I couldn't talk about it until they did the announcement.
Yeah.
And I was totally like, holy cow, like where did that come from kind of thing. But they wouldn't talk about the operating system at the time. The version we saw was running full Windows, but I was like, this is supposed to be like Windows 10X, right? And they're like, yeah, well,
We'll see.
Yeah, and so it went from like, but as Zach said, this was basically supposed to launch with 10X along with
Yep.
Neo. Like this was supposed to be one of those first devices. And then Microsoft, of course, couldn't meet its target expectations and things got delayed. So Lenovo adapted and they're like, well, we worked really hard on this hardware. We want to release it. So they're like, we're going to ship it with Windows 10 Home or Pro. You can get either one from their site. And by the way, we should mention the price is ridiculous. It's $2,500 starting and goes up to like 3,000. You do get the keyboard and pen, so it's not it's a complete kit, but it certainly isn't cheap. And so it's coming with full Windows 10, and they did some shell changes. There's a little app that as you fold it, basically allows you to split the screen easily between apps. And when you put the keyboard on, it actually knows the keyboard is there, so it shifts everything up to the other screen. So it does a lot of smart stuff, and they did that. And to be honest, people buying a ThinkPad right now in this device may actually appreciate the fact it does run full Windows. There's no compromise, right? This is a flat out x86 chip. It's not ARM, it's just runs Windows. There's no compromise. Whereas 10X, being out the gate new would have had some issues, including maybe, the Win32 stuff. But then so Lenovo, when they finally kind of announced it at CES, they were like, it's going to launch with Windows 10 desktop. And then when 10X comes out, because 10X had been announced at that point, they're like, we'll release another version with 10X. But even since then the pandemic happened in March, and then Panos wrote that article, on the site saying that basically they're revising the 10X. They're focusing on single screen devices first now because of they want to compete basically with Chromebooks and everything. And it's still coming out for dual screens and foldables. It's just that's now been kicked back. So now Lenovo doesn't even mention, I don't think this is ever going to ship with 10X. I really don't. I think what will happen is they're going to get feedback on this and they'll do a version 2, maybe in like 2022. And then that will ship with 10X, at which point, 10X will actually be way more refined anyway. But I could see that happening. But yeah, for now, straight up Windows 10. I don't know. It's neat looking into the future and seeing this kind of stuff. But yeah. Probably not for everybody. So yeah, we'll see. So stay tuned for my review. I'm going to obviously try to do that one pretty quick. I have obviously a lot of other stuff I need to review too, but this one's going to be kind of hard to ignore. The big question I want to answer is, besides the novelty of a folding display 13-inch laptop thing, am I actually going to prefer to use it? And that's really how my reviews come down to. It's like, did I actually enjoy using it, or did I feel like I had to force myself?
I think I can already guess your review. The review would be, it's a nice idea, but because Windows is lack of a good tablet experience, the idea of me using this as a foldable tablet makes no sense. As a laptop, it's fine, but the screen is too small when you're doing it in little laptop mode. When you have it as full screen, like when you, because it has a stand on it, right? So you can actually use the full folded screen out and have the keyboard on the desk, not on the actual screen. And that when you get 13.3 inches that way of screen real estate, which is a great idea. I think that's the best thing about it. But then when you use it in like little laptop mode, I think it's what, a 9-inch screen on its own.
Something like that.
It's a small
tiny
screen. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll
Yep.
feel too comfortable using that, because especially since,
Yeah, it actually it seems, I have to directly compare, but it seems when you fold it and use like a laptop to clamshell mode, the display is basically going to be smaller than like Surface Go
yeah, that's going to be cramped.
with all the benefit of the bezels.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely gonna be trade-offs with it.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, can you hold it like a book? I mean, yeah, with one hand. Yeah, I mean, you can see the video now. I'm kind of doing it. How will it be in 30 minutes of me doing this? I don't know. But it doesn't feel terrible right now when I'm holding it. It actually doesn't feel that more dramatic than a hardcover book.
Yeah.
And I have a huge book collection, so I'll do a direct comparison with books in terms of weights and size. But it doesn't feel like it feels like a nice textbook, basically.
Yeah.
So,
I do wonder if the Sun Valley stuff coming to Windows 10 next year will improve that foldable experience on desktop in some way. Because I have heard that there might be some improvements to snapping coming to Windows 10 with Sun Valley, which I assume means when if you, for example, have a foldable and you put it into book mode like Dan just did there, the operating system recognizes that and splits the screen in two. Yeah, like that.
You kind of see here. So, and that's Lenovo has this built-in. It's a little icon down here, and it lets you can kind of see it there if you're on the video, and it lets you choose how you want to do it. And actually, it works very well. It just treats the displays as two displays at that point. So whatever app you launch, it just gives you two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wonder if Windows 10 will get native support for something like that with Sun Valley. I wouldn't be surprised if it does.
Yeah, and how it's as a tablet is going to be interesting. I don't really use tablet mode very often.
Yeah.
That said, the touch on this actually feels good so far. Like I don't know, I'm just touching apps, hitting the minimize button. I'm not using gestures.
Well, there aren't any on 10 anyway.
Yeah, so like there's, I almost kind of want to, because between Windows 8 and now iOS and Android, but I don't know, it feels all right so far. The keyboard is going to be super interesting along with the pen, and that here I just attached the keyboard, and now what's cool, of course, is I'm going to close it, and there you go. Nice little thick chalky boy there.
What is this, the 90s?
Yeah, but like it's all there included, right? You're not going to lose anything. It even has the pen holder built in.
Pen loop.
Yeah, so you get the little pen loop, which, I got the pen right here. So pen in the box. Charges. How's the pen charge? It does charge by. I think the pen is actually USB Type-C, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, just put the pen in the loop, and now you got it all on a.
Look at that.
One little convenient device. Just to imagine busting this out at Starbucks. Put your Surface Duo. Like, sorry, I fold everything. But yeah, listen, a lot of you guys aren't going to buy this. That's fine. I'm going to review it. It's the start of something new. I think this is the future for a lot of devices. Not all devices, but man, you make a Pro X in a couple of years that can fold. There's a lot of potential here. But the technology is going to take a little bit of time to improve. But, it's I think it's super exciting stuff. So if you guys have more questions about the X1 Fold, you can put them into the YouTube comments now. At the end of the podcast, we'll, of course, do our Q&A, and I'll go through it. Obviously, I literally just opened this a few minutes ago, so I haven't been able to – it's not even connected to the internet right now. But regarding the Windows Hello thing, maybe there are updates that need to enable it. There does seem to be like there's something next to the camera, like another little lens that it's not just a straight webcam. So maybe there is something there. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So stay tuned for that on Windows Central. I'll get some photos up early next week too, and like initial impressions and all that kind of stuff, or maybe even do that for tomorrow. Let's head to the other big news for this week. Well, first, let's talk about Windows 10. And oh yeah, that's right. That was the other big news. Yeah, you had a lot of scoops this week. Windows 10 in 2021. So this is, let's just preface this. A lot of people get so salty with Microsoft. It's like, oh, this is the year Windows 10 is going to get, new features and stuff, but what we are expecting actually kind of a big thing here in 2021. So what is that?
Yeah, so I wrote an article this week titled 2021 is shaping up to be a big year for Windows 10. And obviously, as Dan mentioned, the replies were like, oh yeah, I feel like they say that every year. I don't remember anybody saying that about Windows 10. Outside of the initial debut year of Windows 10. Windows 10 has been sitting on the back burner for quite some time internally. Not much has happened in the world of Windows 10. And that was a deliberate choice by Microsoft. Since 2017, once Terry Myerson left, Windows 10 sat on the back burner. They didn't really add many new features to it. It was all enterprisey. It was making the operating system stable, just making it, just keeping it as is and just making it the best it was with what it had. But we're past that now, and it appears Microsoft is back thinking about Windows 10 as a platform for innovation and wanting people to love Windows rather than just using it because that's what they know or that's what they need because for work and stuff. So in 2021, of course, my article was basically just a roundup of all the things we've been hearing so far. So we'll do it in order, I guess. Starting in the spring of 2021, Windows 10X will ship finally. It will ship on low-end to mid-range PCs that compete directly with Chromebooks, more or less. This will not be an operating system that will be released as an update. You won't be able to download it on your existing PCs or install it or just clean install it on existing PCs. There may be an insider program which allows you to flash Windows 10X images onto specific Surface devices. I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not, but if that does happen, that will be the only way it does. Any HP or Dell won't be able to just install Windows 10X with an ISO. That's not going to happen. 10X, for the most part, will be an operating system that you can only get access to by buying a device that it ships with. And those will be from Dell, HP, Lenovo, etc. in the spring, and they will likely be, like I said, low to mid-range PCs. I'm not expecting any flagship laptops with 10X. Microsoft may also ship its own hardware, likely the Surface Go/Surface Laptop Go with a 10X variant. I don't think it'll be a device exclusive to 10X. We'll have to wait and see, but I think it'll be when you're on the store page for Laptop Go, for example, you'll see all the options and you'll be able to pick between Windows 10 and Windows 10X, which will be quite nice. So 10X will be done, or RTM, in December. Now, Microsoft doesn't technically use the phrase RTM anymore, but the milestone still exists. Essentially, what it means is Microsoft will sign off on a build of Windows 10X that it deems good enough to ship on hardware. It will send that build to OEMs, and OEMs can start preloading that onto devices to sell in the spring. Between December and when those devices go on sale, Microsoft will continue fixing bugs and whatnot, and on the day of those devices launching, will release a day one patch that applies to Windows 10X that fixes more bugs and stuff. But none of that really matters because nobody's using 10X yet, so to the user, that's just going to be part of the unboxing experience anyway. And that's really a big deal because Windows 10X, of course, is based on Windows Core OS. This is the modern core of Windows 10 we've been talking about for some time. It uses C Shell. It has no legacy components. It's all modern code from the ground up. And that's a big deal for Windows 10 and indeed Microsoft. But because of the scope of Windows 10X's launch, I think most people aren't going to be very interested in it just yet. Once it starts rolling out to more premium laptops /foldables later in the year /2022, I think that's when it's going to become more interesting for normal people. But at first, I think it will just be us looking at it and reviewing it and whatnot. So stay tuned to that because we are going to be we're going to deep dive Windows 10X. Of course, we are. That is because I'm super interested in Windows 10X. A few people have asked me, will there be any significant changes between what we last saw of 10X and when it ships? The answer is no. From what you saw in February, it's just about the same. The taskbar is the same, the start menu is the same, Access Center is the same, feature set's the same, except it can't run Win32 programs locally anymore. It can do it through the cloud, which we'll get to in a second. The only thing that we haven't really seen on 10X yet is the new File Explorer. We saw a tiny bit of it in one of the preview builds, but it was so early on, we couldn't really tell what it was going to be able to do. But there is a new File Explorer that's sort of based on OneDrive that has the ability to browse your local disk as well, and that will be part of 10X when it launches. But that's basically it. So what we've seen of Windows 10 X so far is basically what will ship, just on single screens instead of dual screens. It's easily adapted. There's no real changes to be made. So that's super exciting. Alongside 10X, we're also expecting a new service from Microsoft called Cloud PC, which will allow users to install applications to a version of Windows 10 in the cloud and stream those apps to any client OS, whether it's Windows 10, Windows 10X, or even Android and iOS. So that's going to be a super interesting idea. So Microsoft is already sort of doing it with xCloud, right? With games, you can stream games these days to any device that has an xCloud client. And Cloud PC will be a similar thing. I believe on Windows 10 and 10X it will eventually be an integrated service. So if you just sign in with your Microsoft account, you'll just see your installed apps in the start menu, click on it, it will just connect and run like that. But on Android and iOS and whatnot, it'll be a client you download and you tap into it, and then you can launch your applications and whatnot. So that's going to be super interesting, and that's how Windows 10X gets around the no Win32 app support thing, at least at first. So that's going to be, I think, really interesting. I'm curious on your thoughts on the whole Cloud PC 10X thing, because to me it's super interesting.
Yeah, no, we had an extensive conversation, I think, on that last week and other podcasts. I'm a huge fan of this. Now, obviously, there's a lot of caveats. I don't think it's going to go mainstream for a couple of years, but you are seeing with game streaming the first consumer push for this idea. And, I think it's definitely catching on. Like this, Amazon now has game streaming. Of course, Google does with Stadia, Microsoft, GeForce Now. So everybody's kind of getting on board with this. And there's a reason for it, because cloud computing is just becoming, there isn't a quarter that goes by for financials where Azure for Microsoft isn't the main story.
Yeah.
So as this technology really increases and becomes more prevalent, we're already seeing gaming. There's no reason, gaming is actually really intensive. You figure if they can figure out gaming and reduce latency and get it running well, even for first-person shooters, that's such a technological challenge, because you could almost be years ago, you could have done streaming for turn-by-turn games, of course, where latency really wasn't a problem. But if you're doing something like Destiny 2, every millisecond counts, not forget a second. But if they can figure that out for gaming, when it comes to apps are pretty lightweight by comparison. And when you combine new form factors like the X1 Fold, Surface Neo, these kind of devices, even of course it would have been nice with Surface Duo, you can kind of really see the advantage there. Now, I think we need to have this hybrid approach initially. And this is actually, Microsoft's actually known for its hybrid cloud technology. So, when companies switch over to the cloud, I believe it's Amazon or maybe it's Google, they can only, it's either the cloud or nothing. There's a thing in between status called hybrid cloud technology, where you have some stuff that's local and then you have some stuff in the cloud. And that's kind of how Windows works right now with OneDrive, OneNote, your profiles, your syncing, Edge, how Edge syncs everything. These are elements of a hybrid cloud approach. And 10X simply emphasizes that a little bit more than the desktop, but there still is local processing. There are local apps you install, PWP, PWA will be local. But I think it's cool, especially because, again, the benefit of Windows, and we talked about this last week with the M1, is the sheer variety of hardware. I get that the MacBook Pro is a cool device and has an M1 processor, and oh my God, Intel's dead and DOA. But no matter how good it is, Zach and I will never switch to it. Not because we write for Windows Central, but because it doesn't do the things we want a computer to do. I want touchscreen. I want inking support. I want LTE and always connected. I love the 2-in-1 form factor. That's what I want. And that's what I enjoy. And if you want a foldable PC that's basically the size of a book, you can't get that with a Mac. And that's what's really cool about Microsoft's approach right now, is this idea of hardware diversity, whether it's at the processor level, the design level, the screen technology, all that. You can find exactly what you want. So I think 10X is going to be I'm also curious about those first-gen devices. You mentioned, kind of competing with Chromebooks. But Microsoft's always had this approach where it's make $400, $500 devices. But there's no reason why a company like HP, Lenovo, or Dell couldn't be boom, here's a $1,200 premium experience, because they may want to test the market to see how it's sold.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So yeah, on the off subject of 10x, quick before we move on from that, I've seen a couple of people mention it in the comments. So a lot of people asking, so how does 10x sit in the market when Windows 10 exists? So the answer to that is think of Windows 10x as replacing Windows 10s. Whichever market Windows 10s serves, Windows 10x essentially steps in and says, right now I'm the option for that. So that's the education market and maybe some enterprise markets as well. Windows 10s still exists and it does still ship on devices. The Laptop Go is one of them, Surface Go is another, and I'm sure there are plenty from HP, Dell as well. And 10x will be sort of where you find that at launch. Like Dan said, over time we will see it show up on more mainstream, higher end devices, but at launch it will be specifically to compete with Chromebooks in the education and enterprise markets. Which, it's kind of a shame. I'm especially since 10x is such a modern and squeaky clean version of Windows compared to legacy Windows 10. I would love it to come to something like a Surface Laptop 4 or whatever, but unfortunately it's not going to happen at first. It probably will
Surface
eventually.
Laptop Go would be
awesome. that's the thing. I think that's where we're going to see it first, but we'll have to wait and see what devices it shows up on. The other thing is ARM supports. I am hearing that Windows 10 will support ARM at launch now, only because the Win32 stuff isn't there anymore. The reason it didn't support ARM originally was because it needed to emulate Win32, which was already an emulation layer on top of having to emulate x86, and it gets messy real quick. All of that
all of emulation.
Yeah, take that out. There's no longer an issue. Therefore, it can launch on ARM. However, although it does support ARM, I don't know if any OEMs will actually ship devices that are ARM based with Windows 10X. That is entirely up to the OEMs to actually make those devices to ship it. Because, like I said, Microsoft isn't going to release this as an update. There will be no ISOs to download. So it's not like you can just go to Microsoft.com and download Windows 10X for ARM. That's not how that works, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait and see on that subject. Finally, the last thing we're expecting in the first half of 2021 in regards to Windows is a 21H1 update for desktop. This will not be a major update. Microsoft is flipping the roles of each feature update in 2021. Usually, the first update of the year is a big one. The second update is the small one. That's been the case for the last 2 years. But in 2021, that won't be the case. Instead, the first update will be the small one, and the second one will be the big one, which leads us nicely into Sun Valley, which we've talked about a bit before. Microsoft is reinvesting in Windows 10 next year with big updates to the user interface and feature sets. We're expecting a refreshed UI, fluid animations, rounded corners, and new features as well. I can't talk about the new features just yet, but we are expecting some new features that I think some users will be happy to see. And this is all in the name of improving and reinvesting in Windows 10 for tablets, laptops, PCs, anything that Windows 10 runs on today. And this is something users will get as an update because it's applicable to legacy Windows 10. It will port some of the 10X stuff to legacy Windows 10. Not all of it, but some of it. So keep an eye out for that. I think we'll start hearing and seeing more about that in January, February timeframe. So that's super exciting. And finally, the last thing that I've been hearing, which kind of leads nicely into the next subject we're going to talk about, is Android apps on Windows 10. So this is a funny story because, as we all know, Microsoft has tried this before with something called Project Astoria. Now, Astoria never shipped. They started working on it, and it worked, and it worked quite well from early testing, but it never shipped because there was a lot of political reasons around doing it in Google and other stuff, and then
there's actually just worth a second to revisit. At the time, UWP was
new,
their baby.
Yes,
that was like they were still on board. UWP, Windows Phone, like that was like the vision.
There was worry that it would eat into UWP adoption, which
it was. It was contradicting what they were trying to tell developers, like build for us. By the way, here you just use Android apps.
Right.
And a lot of developers felt burned. But now in 2020, UWP...
that story is completely different. Microsoft and Windows 10, the platform is an open platform to all app frameworks, whether that be PWA, Win32, UWP, Swift, Linux via WSL, and soon, if Microsoft is able to do this, Android apps. So the project is codenamed Latte, Project Latte, and I'm told it will ship next year, likely with the Sun Valley stuff in the fall of 2021. And what it will allow developers to do is very similar to Astoria from what's been described to me, which is funny because Astoria, if you actually look at Astoria, Astoria birthed the Windows subsystem for Linux. They share very similar code in a lot of areas. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Astoria is WSL, but just with more stuff added to it. So it's not surprising to hear that I'm hearing that the Project Latte uses WSL. So what I'm hearing is developers will be able to package their Android apps in an MSIX and submit that to the Microsoft Store for users to then download and run on Windows 10. That will use WSL with an Android subsystem to put the app on the desktop and run it as if it was running like a native Windows application. That's super interesting because that means little to no code changes for the app developer as far as I understand it. Now, there are some exceptions to that, just with like there was with Astoria, I think. With Astoria, developers could not use Google Play services, and I believe that will be the case with Project Latte as well. There will not be some Play services, and I think that's only because Google doesn't allow Play services to be installed in anything outside of a native Android device / Chrome OS. Although I don't know how BlueStacks gets around it, but as far as I understand it, there will be no Play services part of this thing on Windows 10. So developers, if they have apps that depend on Play service APIs, they will have to either update their apps to remove those dependencies or redirect those APIs to Microsoft's own offerings. Astoria had an interesting thing where Microsoft would intercept those APIs or do the redirecting for them. So developers didn't have to do anything. But I don't know if that's still around. I think that may have been one of the issues that Google had with the whole thing. So we'll have to wait and see if that actually makes a return. Because if that does make a return, then of course there will be no code changes for the developer required. They should just run, and Microsoft will handle the API redirects and whatnot. But I would be surprised if that happens. I think we'll see a requirement of if your app uses Play services, you will have to update to remove that or change the APIs, etc., etc. But that's what I'm hearing for one of the Sun Valley things is Android app support, which is super interesting because, like Dan said, they tried it before. They scrapped it because UWP was their baby. In 2020, that couldn't be further from the truth. UWP is just one part of the puzzle when it comes to the app platform on Windows. Microsoft is trying to make Windows 10 the most universal OS it can possibly be, and that includes supporting apps from any platform, Linux, Android, the web, etc., etc. I'm sure Microsoft would support iOS apps if they could, but that's not a thing that they can do, unfortunately. So there we go. So that's what I'm hearing regarding Project Latte and Android apps on Windows 10. Of course, Microsoft could pull the plug on this at any time. It may never ship, but that's what I'm hearing is in the works internally. And I can't see the reason for it, if I'm perfectly honest. We've talked about this before. I've downloaded BlueStacks. I've tried to use Android apps on PCs. Doesn't work well. I don't enjoy it. I don't have an Android app in my head that I think, oh man, I could really use that on my PC right now. I just don't. Maybe my banking app. Maybe that's the only thing. But even then, I think the website's better on PCs. So
this is like, I agree. So like the problem with, a lot of people had with UWP was the apps compared to full desktop versions were simplified. Didn't have as many features. Sometimes we're more geared towards phone use and not desktop. And that was a fair criticism. For some of us, it didn't matter. We still liked the functionality. And it goes to show you like an app like MyTube, which is still one of my favorite UWP apps. By the way, MyTube 4.0 beta is about to come out, or 4.0 is about to come out. It's in beta right now. That app is literally the best YouTube experience on any platform, I'd argue. It's just so good. So UWP can be, but that was the complaint. When you run an Android app on Windows 10, though, it's like, it really is just a phone app. Maybe you can get a tablet app. And this, we have an article up asking people, like, what do you want to do? Like, what app would you want to run? In banking apps is one of them. Yeah. But I agree. It's sort of like the important metric here to remember is Microsoft's own numbers. 50 to 60% of Windows 10 desktop use is via the browser. Mm-hmm. And that's why Edge is getting so much attention and development and features. And, we see all the time with PWA. If you go to Edge flags and just type PWA, you're going to see a bunch of things that they're working on, trying to get them into the store, running at startup like a real app, intercepting notifications, all of this kind of stuff is coming. So I don't get the idea of like running a banking app on my desktop when I would just use the web like a normal person. I feel like that is what most people are already doing. I don't see the advantage. Someone also said in comments, I would use TP-Link. So I have a TP router, the Archer AX 11000, literally the best router you can buy. It is insane looking. But so I use TP-Link, iOS on Android. It's an app that manages your network. You can see data speeds, what apps are connected or what devices are connected, and do some basic stuff. He said he would run that. I was like, that's interesting, but like, why would you not use the whole router login via browser to 192 type thing? Because when you use that, the TP link is basically the app web version, which means, yes, you can install this as an app, which I did, and have access to it all the time, but you get way more features, including the ability to upgrade your firmware, which the app doesn't do as far as I know. So that seems like a real edge case, though. And I imagine everybody does have an edge case, right? That one thing that would be kind of cool to run. And in that sense, listen, there's no harm in doing this. It's not like your Windows experience is going to be degraded. It's not like they're wiping all the inbox apps and replacing them with Android, right? It's something like that. It's literally just another option. And from that perspective, fine. I don't care. And you can run some games on, I think that's the big thing. You can now run a lot of the popular fad Android app games on your PC. But I don't see this as game changing because, as I said, 50 to 60% of usage is already the browser. That's likely going to increase. The browser is becoming the platform. So I think this is a nice gesture. I think they have the technologies between WSL, the experience of Astoria, and the way and this idea of, I do like the idea of Windows as an open platform, not open source, but open platform, as Zach pointed out, where you can run any app you kind of really want using whatever language and tools you want. They're going to make it, instead of you got to develop, it's the exact opposite of what Apple does. I think that's cool. I think the idea of like even running Android apps on your Windows 10 PC, for some people, it will be beneficial. It may be even game changing. But I don't think it's going to move the needle too much in terms of.
Yeah, I think most developers won't opt to submit their apps in the Microsoft Store anyway. And those that do, I think it'll be like, as Dan said, like edge cases, like unique scenarios where it makes sense to do that. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'll be super interested to see how it runs from a performance perspective, because it does run through WSL, I think. So I'll be interested to see like if it feels like a native app, if it's laggy, or if it's smooth and stuff. If you'll be able to resize the app windows, because some Android apps don't really do that very well. It'll be super interesting.
Didn't you report something with WSL getting like GPU support, acceleration?
So this isn't technically the same thing, but I guess it helps towards this goal of. So Microsoft is adding support for GUI Linux apps to WSL2 at some point soon. I think it goes into preview very soon, and that will allow you to essentially run a Linux application with a graphical interface such as GIMP or the Ubuntu File Explorer on your Windows 10 desktop with its UI and its entirety. And they're also adding GPU acceleration at some point as well. It may already be there, which should aid in making those apps look and feel much more native and performant. So yeah, WSL is a super interesting project. You should read up on it a little bit. It is really interesting to see Microsoft embracing Linux in the way they are. And it is primarily used as a sort of developer/IT administrator tool right now. It's not really a consumer-based thing, like a normal user thing. But
I've literally never run it.
Right, yeah, me neither. But using, by adding Android apps and making that something that you can install through the store, puts WSL in front of normal people. Although normal people won't see the whole command prompt thing and stuff. I hope not. Anyway, that'd be a terrible user experience. They will get to sort of use that technology that Microsoft has been building behind the scenes for something that they can take advantage of. So that will be super interesting to see as well. But yeah, this is all supposed to be coming next year. I would expect this will be a build announcement, if anything, because build is supposed to be, May 2021? Maybe, it might even be earlier this year, considering the whole pandemic and virtual events. Although, didn't they say they're doing Ignite, a second part of Ignite in early 2021? But it might even be announced there. Who knows? But yeah, we'll wait and see how that turns out.
It's kind of fun stuff. We'll see how it all runs and whether it comes together.
Oh yeah, the other thing people are asking, will this be a thing on ARM64 devices? I am told yes, ARM64 devices will support this. I don't think it'll be exclusive to ARM64. Some people have said it's just going to be for Windows 10 and ARM only.
I wonder if it would actually run better with ARM64.
Could be. It really could, right? Because although a lot of Android apps actually support both x86 and ARM. Like it's not as rare on Android to see only an app support one platform. It does happen.
Chromebooks are x86.
Yeah.
They're only now switching to ARM, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I would be surprised if it's ARM only, but I am told it will run on ARM. So.
Well, options are good. We'll see if we'll make use of it. But it's all going to come down to the performance. But, like I said, it's nice to have these options. Let's move on to other rumors and stuff expected for 2021. Surface Pro 8, Laptop 4, both conspicuously absent from the October announcements. That said, Zach had been hearing for a while that these were obviously in the works. I think there was a lot of expectation that Surface Pro 8 would get a massive redesign, massive in quotes. I actually don't think, I think most of you will agree, if you think about it, the Pro 7 doesn't need a massive redesign. It just needs thinner bezels.
Yeah.
And maybe like a better processor. And for me, throw in LTE. We can now confirm it's probably going to definitely have 11th gen processors.
Oh, yeah.
Like I
100%.
feel like that's just, yeah. And you're going to get Intel Iris Xe graphics, which if you haven't seen my XPS 13 review, go see the benchmarks there. I still got to finish the Tune one, but similar story. It's 11th gen. I think it's going to be as impactful as a switch to quad core for the Core series a few years ago. I think that was for the 8th gen, which made a huge impact. This is going to be a significant boost in performance for Surface Pro. You combine that, maybe improve battery life, because I have seen multiple hours of improvement from 11th gen versus 10th, which is pretty awesome. You rarely get that combo of like massively improved performance, really good improvement in battery life. Like that, it's usually the opposite, right? So that's gonna be good. The question we don't know, and now we confirmed there will be a Surface Pro 8 with LTE, which Microsoft moves slow on this stuff. It's been years, 2017, since they last did an LTE Pro device, and that one is still dual core. So I find that just repulsive at this point. But they're going to finally do that. The question I have, and we've heard rumors that they're going to bump the display from 12.3 to 12.7 inch simply by thinning out the bezels slightly. Do we have any more info on that, if that's true or not?
No, but I'm going to guess it's not true because the images of the Pro 8 that leaked this week are from a certification process in Korea, I believe. So similar to the FCC in the States. So a product goes through certification. And at that point, if it's going through certification, that device going through certification is representative of the device that will ship. And if you take a look at the photo, it is the Pro 7 design with the same thick bezels and whatnot. So, unfortunately, no bigger screen. They have definitely prototyped it internally, for sure. But I guess they decided that, with the pandemic and whatnot, that they don't really need to push a brand new Pro with a new design at the moment.
The other issue there, too, is every display that Microsoft uses is a custom display.
Yeah.
That's what makes, don't forget, they were the only ones doing 3x2. That's starting to change now. We're starting to see more 3x2. But their screens are custom designed and this is the difference between like Lenovo and HP who source their displays that are basically prefabbed and that comes in like they're going to like for instance OLED. There are not a lot of 13-inch OLEDs or 14-inch OLEDs. In fact, I don't know if there are any. And so it's not because like Lenovo doesn't want to make like a 14-inch OLED device. It's because either Samsung or LG isn't manufacturing that / the ones that they have made don't meet the standards that these companies necessarily want, specifically the longevity of, ghosting and all that kind of stuff. So they would have to customize. They would have to switch production from a 12.3 to a 12.7, have that custom made, build that around, of course, the motherboard, the hardware design of the thinner bezels, and then also be able to mass produce that in numbers where the screen failure rate is at such a point where it's acceptable, as well as their profit margins aren't being eaten into, because now you got to request a new design change. Like it becomes problematic. Not that they can't do it, of course, but these are the issues that they have to contend with. If it doesn't have the slightly larger display, I think that's going to be kind of a bummer. I think the performance is going to be really nice. And turning to laptop 4, same thing, right? Expecting 11th gen Xe graphics. The laptop 4, a little bit more lenient. I don't find those bezels to be thick or revolting. I actually really love the laptop. I think it's the only thing I would want to see is maybe LTE, but I fully recognize I'm in the minority there. It's not a make or break feature.
Well, you will be getting LTE in the Pro 8 because that's what
Right.
I'm told that will be an option this time around. So the last time the standard Surface Pro got an LTE model was with the Surface Pro 5 back in 2017, which was a dual-core Surface Pro. And they didn't add LTE since until the Pro 8. I'm hearing there will be a model for those who want to buy an Intel Pro with LTE. So that's nice. You're not limited to ARM anymore, which is super cool. But that's basically all we're hearing for the Surface Pro 8. We don't know anything about the type covers. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new type cover that has the new slim pen thing in it, because that would be nice. That would be a nice upgrade for Surface Pro users, because that would then work on not only the Pro 8, but the Pro 7 and the Pro 6 and the Pro 5, and even back to the Pro 3, I think. So that would be cool.
It's going to be fun to put up a Pro 8 with LTE against the Pro X SQ2.
Yeah.
Because my hunch is the SQ2 will still get an extra, I want to say, hour or two of battery life.
Yeah.
Not a tremendous amount, but listen, an hour or two is actually, it is massive if you think about it. If you're using a laptop for a work day, 8 to 10 hours, that extra 1 or 2 hours could be significant.
But the Pro X wins because it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, I was also going to say with the Pro X, you're also going to get the larger display at 13-inch, which I've argued in the past. I find 13-inch that size the sweet spot. I mean, I'll take 14 too, but that display, because of the form factor, that the 13-inch screen sits closer to you when you're using it versus a laptop.
Yes.
So it actually, this is all important stuff when you review devices you really notice. Like the Pro series, you do sit closer to, so it makes those smaller displays a little bit easier. But the 13-inch is just, really, really perfect. Plus you get those thin bezels, that awesome thin design. And those aren't inconsequential. I'll also probably say that in my experience, the Qualcomm ARM devices with LTE perform better for connectivity. Because if you think about it, what they're doing here, it's an Intel chipset, and then you just have to throw in like a Qualcomm modem. And listen, that's what it's made for. But you're not getting the whole built into one stack experience. So this is one thing Apple has been doing, right? This is why Apple's processor is so good, because they build it so that the memory systems and the graphics and talk directly there. They don't have to build around, limitations. And I still find that, I think for most people, the Intel modem is still fine. Don't get me wrong, it works well. But you do get a little bit more of like, I've seen modem failures with the Intel-based systems. That is, sometimes you'll go to use it and like, it's just so like the modem not on and you have to like restart the device. We'll see. Those are bugs that can be worked out though.
So regarding the Laptop 4, we're not expecting any redesigns for that either. We're still expecting a 13-inch and a 15-inch variant. The 13-inch will be Intel 11th Gen, likely with XE graphics options as well. And there will be the 15-inch with new AMD chips, likely AMD Ryzen 4000.
I can imagine it's
I've not been able to. It's what? Sorry.
No, I couldn't imagine it's not.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It would be tragic.
Yeah, so I've not had that confirmed, but I think it would be weird if it wasn't that. So likely to be Ryzen 4000. Because, that's a huge update over the Ryzen 3000.
Yeah, my review of the 15-inch last year was basically shrug. Like, all right, it's a slightly bigger Ultrabook, but the performance is actually slightly worse.
Yeah.
And you're really not getting any benefits. And like at the time, a lot of people were going, oh, AMD is so much cheaper. But you weren't getting that passed on to you as a consumer. It's not like the AMD 15-inch was like a bargain. So there was just it was slightly worse battery life, slightly worse performance. You weren't getting as much instant on effects, and it wasn't any cheaper. So it's just like, I like the design.
Yeah.
I like the idea. But you throw an AMD Ryzen 4000 and, I've been totally honest, that's a good chip.
Yeah.
That one actually can often outperform Intel's best in the same device. You throw that in there with their graphics, the good battery life. All right, that becomes a more interesting device. You're still getting a 15-inch Ultrabook, though, with a non-NVIDIA dedicated graphics, which is a weird. The only reason I mention that's a rare device. I'm not saying it's a wrong device to make. I'm not saying people won't find value in it. I'm saying there's a reason why you see 13 and 14-inch Ultrabooks, by which I mean usually 15. Now we're seeing 28-watt processors, no discrete GPU, that focus on battery life and work productivity. When you hit 15-inch, you start to see, all right, now we're going to workstations. We're throwing in an NVIDIA 1650 GPU. We're throwing in some more.
A 15-inch laptop should be able to edit 4K video with no problem, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there are exceptions to this. The LG Gram 17,
right.
one of my favorite devices, it's literally just a 13-inch laptop made big. there's no other features to it. It's just that. It's like, do you need a 17-inch word processor or for photo editing? But it's an awesome laptop with amazing battery life, and I love using it actually. So that because of that, the 15-inch Surface laptop occupies a weird space. But AMD 4000 is going to be, I don't want to say a game changer, but it's going to be
an improvement.
I'm going to significantly have to reevaluate my review. Basically, it's going to change that score big time. So.
If it can do 4K video, I would consider one again. So I loved the 15-inch Surface Laptop 3. And because I got the Intel one, but to be fair, I would put. Here's the thing: Ryzen 4000 or 11th gen Intel of XE.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, which one do you go for?
Yeah, I don't. I have to do those numbers. I don't think, and I know the AMD fans are going to be like, obviously AMD, but I don't think it's that close anymore. I mean, sorry. I don't think it's that much of a discrepancy. I think 11th gen really does close the gap.
Yeah.
There may be instances where AMD will win out, stuff like that, but I don't find. It's not as dramatic as the desktop AMD versus Intel. Sure. And if you heard me last week talk about Intel's 11th gen stuff, we're seeing a lot of more AI smart stuff, whether it's microphone filtering for live conversations being built in, whether it's time of flight support. I'm curious if Microsoft will ever, this is again where Microsoft is very conservative. We're seeing Dell and HP put in time of flight sensors into the display where it actually detects your presence without relying on the camera. So when you walk away, it automatically locks the laptop, but when you come back, it automatically turns on, and it works very well. You're seeing that with Intel devices, not the AMD ones. You're seeing laptops that can tell if you're using it in your lap or on your desktop, and thereby adjusting the processor and GPU accordingly based on the fan and heat and all that kind of stuff. That's still the advantage of Intel, but it's going to be fun to sort of evaluate these.
Yeah.
But
so I am hearing these products will launch mid-January, which is a weird time for Surface devices to be announced to launch, but that's what I'm hearing it will happen. Regarding the Pro 8, I've heard specifically that the Pro 8 will not launch for consumers, at least not at first. It will be a commercial/enterprise only launch, which will be a first for Surface outside the Surface Hub and whatnot. I'll have to confirm that, but that's what I've been hearing so far. I assume consumers will still be able to buy it if they really want, but I don't think there'll be a push. I'm hearing this will be a very sort of, low down announcement/launch. There won't be a big fuss about it like previous Surface launches. This will just sort of be here's some new Surfaces, enjoy, have fun. Because the designs are the same. I think they might even do what they did with the Pro X. They will just call these new Surface Pro, new Surface laptop. Maybe they'll call them Pro 8 laptop 4, but it would also make sense for them to not do that. But we'll have to see, of course. I'm also hearing that there will be a black Surface Go 2 made available in January, which is fun. Same internal specs as far as I'm aware, just a brand new color option in black, so that'd be nice. No Surface Studio. If that's going to happen, it'll be in the fall. But even then, it might not even happen. We'll have to wait and see. And that's, I think, everything we're expecting from Microsoft in 2021. Surface Duo is supposed to be coming to more markets in February. I have a list of the markets. I can't share them yet though. It's not a lot of markets. I think I can count them all on one hand. How many more markets it's expanding to? But it will be expanding to some more markets. So that will be interesting to see. We're not expecting a new Surface Book next year or a new Surface Go. Are we expecting a new Surface Go next year? We might, because 10X launches, we might see a new Surface Go of that, but we'll have to wait and see. But then the other one is Surface Neo. That there's sort of right now it's sort of back and forth between fall 2021 or sometime in spring 2022. So it's too early to tell when that will show up. But that's basically everything we're hearing for 2021 so far.
I don't want to do too many questions right now, but someone's asking, like, why isn't there much of a battery performance increase with the ARM versus x86 between Pro 7 and SQ2? There is. You have to remember the the Pro X with its SQ2 is a thinner device and actually has a smaller battery than the Pro 7. forgot the exact size of the battery. I believe it's like 39 watts. And I believe the Surface Pro 7s is like a 48 watt. So it's like 10 watt difference. So the Pro X actually has a smaller battery, by at least 10 watts, but gets a few hours more battery life than the Pro 7 while having an LTE modem on all the time. If you were to take the Pro X and put in the Pro 7's battery, you're going to then get even more battery life, obviously. You're going to get like 4 hours more. So there is a massive increase. The thing is, and you can see this because go look at the Lenovo Flex 5G, for instance, which gets really good battery life, like 14 hours of real world usage. I'm talking like even the Samsung, and you see this with the Galaxy Book S, the super thin. So what companies are doing, this is the difference. So Apple, of course, is transitioning to ARM. Microsoft is merely offering ARM as an option. But what Microsoft is doing with the ARM is creating new devices that could not be done with Intel. Apple is literally keeping the exact same chassis and design as the Intel, just putting the ARM chip in. So it's still a bigger device. It's a heavier device. It has a bigger battery. So when you're seeing those gains in the battery, there's nothing really magical by the M1, by the way. Like I know like a lot of people, especially in our audience here, thinking like Apple's doing some kind of voodoo. It's really not. They're down to 5 nanometers, which is actually getting where a lot of the benefit comes from. And the fact that they build the chip along with the OS together gives them a lot of optimization. But if you take a large battery and stick it with an ARM processor, you're going to get ridiculous battery life. Like I said, we see that with the Flex 5G. But the Pro X is a device that literally cannot exist as an Intel device. If you threw an x86 in there, and if you threw the Intel x86 in there, your battery life would drop down to probably about 5 hours. And the Pro 7's battery life is okay. I think you're going to get near 7 hours of real world usage. It all depends on what you consider acceptable brightness, whether you're using the Iris Plus graphics, like all that's going to, of course, impact your battery life. But the Pro X absolutely does get more battery. And we do see a significant improvement. It's just the math of it too. 14 nanometer or 10 nanometer versus a 7 nanometer chip. I mean, it's just, yeah, there is a massive difference between the two. But that's a different approach. Microsoft is taking that new abilities with ARM and creating new devices with it, where Apple hasn't done that yet. Apple could very well do that. They could have made the MacBook Air like kind of a ridiculously new device like the Galaxy Book S, right? The Galaxy Book S is like, what, I think 2 pounds? Like it is just stupid thin. Has a really nice display. The keyboard's shallow, but it's a good keyboard, very nice trackpad. Gets very good battery life, good performance. That could have been the MacBook Air. So that's the difference between ARM, between the two. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's that. Let's move on. We already did X1 Fold. If you guys missed that at the beginning of the podcast, you can watch that later. So I just want to mention Eufy real quickly. Last year, I wrote an article. So this isn't obviously Windows related, but I know a lot of people in our audience it's that time of year. People are buying smart home and security stuff. So last year, I reviewed the Eufy doorbell, and I explained why I had a Ring Pro doorbell before then. And the Ring doorbell fogged up and got kind of a fungus behind it. And basically, every time I would stream someone at my door, it was just like foggy, right? I couldn't see anything. So I was like, now to Amazon or Ring's credit, the customer service was fantastic. They sent me a new one and it was fully covered. So that was cool. But by that point, I already started looking at the Eufy doorbell because Eufy was at a 2K resolution, whereas Ring was only at full HD. And I was like, well, 2K is better. And I just kind of like the design. So I bought it and installed it, and I've been super happy with it. The main benefit was the latency. So the time you launch the app or you hit the notification to get the live video, it's like a second or two on my network. It's just instant. And I wasn't getting that with Ring. Ring, I would get the spinning, and it would take sometimes 5 to 10 seconds, which when someone's ringing your doorbell, is like a lifetime, right? So I was very positive, but I was still, the rest of my house is on Ring, including the alarm system. But the question I had going to 2020 was like, am I going to basically be able to augment and replace stuff on my network? And since then I have. So I did put up the review for the Eufy Cam 2, which is their outdoor or indoor cams. The ones I have run at full HD. They do now have the Eufy Cam 2 Pros, which do 2K. The benefit here, though, is you recharge this thing and the battery lasts a year, which is ridiculous. My Ring would last maybe 3 months. In fact, one of my Ring cameras, I had their accessory of a solar panel, which I also mounted on my house, and which I thought at the time was kind of cool. I'm like, oh, cool, my camera is solar powered. It wasn't as effective in winter, but it was still better than nothing. But this can basically go up for a whole year. And so far, it's been 6 months. So I've had these installed for 6 months, and it's 52% battery. So they're not lying. And because of that freedom, you can just mount these things anywhere. They have these cool little mounts. And I literally put one up in a tree. So in my backyard, I got a tree, and I mounted the camera high up. Yep, I used a ladder to install it, so you just can't jump up and hit it. But and it stares out from my back of the yard, looking to the front of the yard. So if people come into my backyard, I'm totally aware of it. And it works 100% of the time. My neighbor was doing some yard work, and he kind of came into my yard, but he was near the fence. He wasn't doing anything. But totally caught him. I was like, it was 6 a.m. too. I was like, hey, what are you doing? So I'm a big fan of these. So I've got 2 of them now. I've also got some of the door sensors and window sensors. And my goal is to eventually switch and get away from Ring. Part of it's because of Amazon. They work with the police. There's The Intercept and a couple other media outlets have written about the security issues with Ring, whether they're giving their stuff to law enforcement, they're sharing your data, or even just hackability. The other thing with Ring and all these things is like, whether it's Ring, if it's Google's Nest Cam, the data, the video doesn't store locally. It goes to the cloud, which is a security concern, but they also make you pay for it, right? So if you want your clips for more than 30 days or more storage, or you want to share your clips, yeah, you got to give us $6 a month or $3 a month or $9 a month. And it becomes a subscription, and that's where all the money is being made. It's another subscription. Eufy actually technically does have a cloud option, but they make it so hard to find. But the reason is because you don't need it. Each camera has 16 gigabytes of onboard storage. And so everything gets stored locally, up to 3 months, in fact. And so my data never leaves my network, but I can still access it from any smartphone, iOS or Android. And, I think that's important for a lot of people. I like the idea you just buy these and that's it. That's the end of the transaction. You don't have to deal with Eufy anymore. And for me, you combine that with their low prices, I've been very happy with it. So, in fact, my best friend, I gave him my referral code. He bought some stuff. He's been using it at the doorbell, and he's been so happy. He bought they have a thing that replaces your deadbolts, and you can use your fingerprint to unlock it. You can use the phone app to unlock it. And even if the power goes out, you can just connect a external battery to it, like through USB, and then just power it on. So I think this stuff is kind of cool. I'm a big fan. Maybe there are better stuff out there. I don't know. Zach, do you use any smart home security things?
I don't. It's weirdly. It's one thing I've not really looked into or invested in. I've done the whole voice activate house thing and all of that, like lights and whatnot, but I've not done the security stuff. I should look into it.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is I get a lot of packages delivered. That was my initial. And, literally I had the X1 Fold delivered today. No signature required. Now, luckily I work from home most of the time, so it's fine. But you feel a little bit better when there's a camera there and you know who's coming up.
Yeah.
People things have now AI smart people detection. So I can actually set with Eufy. If a human is walking in front of my house, like they're walking down the street, which a lot of people do, especially with the pandemic, the alarm doesn't go off and I don't get a notification. I could tell it to do it if I wanted to, but it won't the way I have it set up. But if you're walking towards my house, it sees the face and then I get the notification, which is kind of that smart stuff you want, right? Yeah. You want to be on your phone. Every time a tumbleweed blows by.
Can it do the thing where you register faces so it knows who they are for next time when they show up? So say your mate comes around
No, it doesn't do that, but that gets into the difference, I think, because now you're giving up facial data and identification to the cloud. And listen, I get the value in that. I think that's actually kind of cool. I think Ring maybe
Jim's
does that.
outside. Oh, hi, Jim.
Yeah, like there's definitely value to that, but there's also that risk. This AI is local. It's just face recognition, so nothing is being cloud processed. But listen, and it's the same reason I'm trying to get away from Amazon. Same reason I don't use Google's Nest Cam. I just don't want my data going to the cloud. Moreover, I don't want to pay to access my stuff. I think it's ridiculous. But yeah, all this stuff is getting like super smart. But that's, in fact, Eufy has a Kickstarter right now. They're coming out with basically a big mailbox, like it's a box/safe that sits on your doorstep, and like the mail guy, Amazon could put in a box in there basically, and it locks, and so it protects your packages. It has a camera on it, an alarm, and all this kind of stuff. And that's a big deal, like especially this time of year. This is why they're popular. Sure, they're dropping down in price right now. Eufy's on sale everywhere on Amazon, all that kind of stuff. So it is a good time to buy. But moreover, especially now, everybody's shopping online, right? Because of the pandemic. And like if you're getting a lot of packages to your house, you can see it. I mean, it's not 100%. People are literally caught on camera stealing other people's packages. And that's unfortunate. But at least now you have, one, the whole idea of a deterrence, also the possibility you could see it. Ring has a thing with the Ring neighborhood, they call it. Basically, someone steals something from your yard, you can share the clip to your neighbors, become like snitches. And Eufy doesn't do anything like that as far as I know. But it depends what you're looking to do. I don't live in a high crime area, but still I kind of like the security of it. I also like the idea of like, if I'm out and someone rings my door, I get it. My favorite thing is that you can set the notification. So when a notification comes in, it actually gives you the screenshot of the person. So it's like your front doorbell's ringing and you'll see a person out there. Like that's saves me from opening the app. It's like, oh, UPS, I see he's dropping off the package, right? And if you have an Apple Watch, it actually shows the picture on the watch. It looks rad. It's like, oh my God, I'm really in the future right now. But there's also something weird about the idea of putting cameras everywhere and this surveillance society we're moving towards. I don't have cameras in my house. I do draw the line there, even with Eufy, but I also just don't see the value. Like, why do I need to film myself, right? But if you need a baby cam, I get the baby cam thing, like Eufy makes that too. So if that's something you're interested in. But go check out that review. Let me know what you guys use and why you prefer it and why you think you like paying for storing your videos and Google servers or Amazon's. That's fascinating stuff. Edge news, real quickly. Honey. I actually like Honey. I didn't know what Honey was until I started seeing it pushed with Edge. So Honey is just one of those services that basically when you go to a website like Amazon, it goes, hey, these are the prices for that device for the last 90 days. And it informs you as a shopper where you can see like is that price low or high compared to what it was 6 months ago. And actually, that does influence my decision. You can also set an alert. So if the price does drop, you'll get like an email. And to be honest, it's actually kind of a cool thing. So I actually like Honey. And then Microsoft built Honey into Edge for Android. I forgot if it came to Edge for iOS. There was like a distinction that for some reason one had it, one didn't. And for Edge on desktop, it was an extension you had to install yourself. But it was like, it's super popular. Microsoft now has Microsoft Shopping, which seems it's actually replacing kind of Honey. So they took Honey out of their Android apps, and now it's under coupons. And this idea is supposed to be when you go to a site, you'll see the little like coupon thing show up, and you click in. It's going to. That was the other thing with Honey. It tries codes for you, discount codes for 20% off, 10% off. So Microsoft's using that with Bing. This is another Bing AI push, right? This is that technology. So far, it's not working as good as Honey. Like I still really prefer Honey over it, but this is all beta and early testing. But I think it's an interesting thing. Microsoft is really adding what I would say are front-facing, consumer value-driven options to these browsers for people. I mean, if you look at Edge on iOS and Android to even have a built-in ad blocker into it. It just, you turn it on. That's really awesome. Or they have NewsGuard, which rates news sites based on how good they are. So that's kind of cool. The other thing is the Great Suspender. I've actually recommended this extension on the podcast a long time ago. Great Suspender was an extension you can install in your browser, and you can set the time after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It would suspend the tabs you're not using, thereby freeing up memory and CPU processes, because tabs that are active actually do affect performance of the device. Now, if you're on a desktop like me, like a Core i9, 64 gigs of RAM, I'll run 50 tabs. It doesn't matter, right? But on a device like Surface Pro X, Surface Go, any kind of laptop, yeah, actually, you do have more constrained resources. And because you're not plugged into the wall, you don't want stuff running into the background if you're not using it. So Great Suspender would then allow you to do that, suspend. And then when you click the tab to go back to it, just refresh and come back. It was great. That extension, the developer sold it to like another company over the summer, and it gets committed to GitHub. And apparently, I don't know the specifics, but people were saying it now has like malware in it, and it's basically I think they sell your data basically.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, and so, to Microsoft's credit, if you have the extension installed, it actually flagged it. It actually alerted you saying, "Hey, it has malware in it," so we're kind of like letting you know. So yeah, basically, if you use Great Suspender, I mean, it's your computer. Everybody has their thresholds for what they consider important. But the good news is, again, with Edge, they're basically building this feature into Edge. So it's actually, I think it's in all the versions now. It's definitely in dev, and I believe it's in beta. But if you go to Edge, but it's not active. So you have to go to Edge, //flags, and type in sleep. You'll get two options. One is to enable the feature, and then one is to I think the default value is something like 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, the tab will go to sleep. But you can set it to basically when you stop using the tab, immediately goes to sleep. But you just do the first one. I think then you can set it into the settings. But they're basically building Great Suspender right into Edge directly, which I think is genius. Again, if you're using a laptop, Surface Pro X, Surface Go, you're going to want to, and you use Edge, you're going to want to use this because it does make a difference. If you're like me and you run a lot of tabs.
Yeah, if you're like me and you don't, you have no need for it because you close all your tabs like a sensible, respectful user.
Terrible. What's the point of having all this processing power? I currently have
4 tabs open and I don't need 3 of them. So I'm going to close them right now.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I have about 12 open.
That's ridiculous.
Some of them are news stories that we're covering. And that's after I closed a bunch before the podcast to, make sure I free up resources.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a big tab user. So, but this is, man, I really do like Edge. Between, I'm running obviously Edge right now. I have the new vertical tabs, which is amazing. If you're on a desktop, I even use it on the Pro X, and you can enable this again in flags if it's not on yours. The vertical tabs. I use the vertical tabs. I've used collections all the time when I'm doing research, saving things, collections. I love the new history button. So they have the history. You can pin it in your toolbar and you click it and it just brings up a pop-up window of your history, which you can then search. Before it was hidden in a menu.
Yeah.
Bring up the menu, then a sub-menu, and it was just you had to go too deep. Now it's right there. And I use history a lot. Maybe I read an article 3 days ago, just type in the keyword, bring it up again. I just really like what you're doing with Edge. I'm using it more and more, and I like the consistency across platforms. It's not one-to-one, of course, but you're getting a lot of these same features. So that is your Edge news for the week.
I like Edge too. I wish the UI was a bit more jazzy though. It still looks like Chrome.
I don't disagree. They did upgrade the icons.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah, they're very subtle updates, but yeah, they have done that. But I would love to see nice. Acrylic or some of real effects or just something to make it feel more Microsofty. But alas,
well, I mean, for instance, I consider the standard here. I love Firefox design.
Yeah.
Like, Firefox looks awesome for some reason. Like they do have a really, really nice UI. But I agree. It is a little generic right now. Just I feel like this is the Windows 10 mobile design almost. It's just very sparse, and
Yeah.
the new icons are kind of cool. They do have a new one for the vertical tabs, which looks kind of nifty. But I guess you have to put in a request, right? Please
Yes,
make the tabs.
yeah.
Sorry, make the icons better. Yeah, I feel like it could use a little bit more color.
Yeah, although I guess that could be solved via themes, right? Because Edge does support Chrome's themes in the web
The
store.
themes don't change the icons, I don't think. It's just...
Yeah, no, maybe you're right, yeah.
But then again, I also understand with, I think they want the border, the toolbar, all that kind of fade into the background.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about focusing on the contents.
Yeah.
So I think it can go either way, but that is that. What else we got here? Oh yeah, why is PlayStation 5 beating the Series X? This is not in sales. So I should have clarified that if you heard this at the beginning. We're talking performance, which is actually worse.
Yeah.
So the Series X is the world's most powerful gaming console, and yes, we're not necessarily seeing that. Digital Foundry did some tests, and turns out a lot of the games that are available right now are kind of performing better on PS5, despite a slightly slower processor, I believe, and the GPU is not as powerful. PlayStation 5 has amazing storage speeds, of course, but it's not clear that's what's causing this. Microsoft came out, and to their credit, I don't think they're wrong here. It's not something you want to hear, which is basically that the SDK, for the game, or the GDK, the gamer developer kit, it's early. It's not completely optimized. There's some bugs. And basically, the games you're seeing now aren't completely fully optimized. Jez Corden has a really good article about this. He suspects. We heard about PS5 dev units for game developers last year. So apparently they were already optimizing games back in late 2019. But we know for a fact the Series X and Series S by extension weren't landing into developers until this summer. So there is that whole thing where the PlayStation devs have had a lot more time to actually tweak their games versus the Xbox ones. And we haven't really seen many new games written from scratch with the idea of the Series X in mind. I think that excuse is technically okay. Of course, we need to revisit that, right, in 6 months or 9 months or 3 months to see if we do see those improvements. Microsoft did say they're expecting an update to, I believe it's the GDK, like in the next couple months, which will address some of these concerns. And then we'll have to wait for developers to. Does it really make a difference? I don't know. You still have the Series X. Like, I don't know. We're talking like a couple frames difference, I imagine, in overall performance. It's not like, 4K, 120 versus.
It's still an improvement over the last gen stuff, but it is interesting to see that the Series X is chugging a little bit compared to the PS5s, even though on paper the Series X should be the more powerful console. I think what did Microsoft chalk it up to? Bugs in the SDK or something? There's a few bugs in the OS or something or other. I think what this is just developers are still learning the ropes and getting used to the new SDKs and the capabilities of the console, and aren't optimizing their own games well enough for it yet. I'm sure there'll be more updates that fix them and make them smooth things out. And as we move further away from the Xbox One and more into the Series X generation, new games will of course be much better optimized for it. By the end of the generation, we'll be seeing crazy stuff from developers.
Yeah, and that's not an unusual story. Anytime we see like a new platform or advancement with consoles, so you don't see the advancements till like much later. So pin a pin.
Put a pin in it.
Put a pin in it. There you go. And we'll revisit this topic in 6 months or something to see if Microsoft has been able to close the gap. I don't think it technically matters. Again, it's more about the ecosystem, the value with Xbox right now. Yeah, they're powerful. You can get that instant resume feature, which I find to be, I think, the better selling point. But there's also things like Xbox Game Pass, which is really the value driver there. And I feel like you're either on board with that or you're on board with Sony. Some people do both. I don't see it as necessary. I still don't get. I did sell my Series X, by the way.
Oh, yes,
And
you
Zach
did.
knows. Yes, I made a pretty penny for you gamers. Yeah, I did. I wasn't planning on it, but man, they're selling, $400 more than
That's
their.
do they not realize that the Series X is basically an Xbox One right
I
now?
guess if you don't have an Xbox,
True. Yeah, I guess.
but I think hardcore gamers, I don't feel bad for selling it in the sense that I like gaming. But I've said this endlessly in this podcast. It's just my life. I'm busy. I'm always reading. I'm always researching. I don't make the time to game like I used to, um, and it's a shame. And so, yeah, I could have the $500 I spent in the Series X would have been fine. My YouTube TV would have loaded more quickly, and I would have enjoyed it. But I'm actually feel better selling it to like what I presume is a hardcore gamer who is willing
Yeah.
to pay a pretty penny. But at least he's going to get value out of it, right? Like he's at least going to be. Imagine for $900, he's going to game the hell out of it, and so I actually kind of feel better. Uh, it's going to a good home, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Or
and
maybe
in
maybe
hindsight,
he just bought it to try and sell it for even more.
well, you shouldn't have bought it for that high of a price.
Yeah.
But yeah, had I known all this would have happened, so it's like Beanie Babies. I would have bought like Sony PlayStation 5s and maybe a couple Xbox Ones, but or Xbox Series X's. But that's that. So I'm going to use that money for paying down my credit cards from buying too many watches. It's all full circle. All right, quickly, thing of the week. Oh, now I forgot mine. Oh yeah,
I
there
have
it
I
is.
have mine. I finally figured one out. So if you want me to go first, I
Okay.
will.
Well, I'll go first because I
Sure.
have it now in front of me. Mine's just another TV show recommendation on HBO Max, or it's HBO original. I think it's just on HBO. I'm not really sure. Look it up. How to with John Wilson is quite possibly one of the funniest, most interesting things. This is a guy who lives in New York City. He started a series on the web, and it was on Vimeo, I believe, and it just became kind of popular as kind of cult thing. He just constantly goes around New York City with a video camera and just shoots hours and hours of footage. Reminds me of American Beauty, which was on last night, where the kid had like a wall just full of tapes. Like he just records everything. He also writes down everything he's done in a day. He's been doing it for like 10 years. He has all these notebooks. He's kind of, it seems like a little bit OCD slash creative, but he then takes like a year of footage that has no theme to it. He's just literally shooting stuff. And then he goes back and creates a story out of all his videos. Some of them that have a theme that runs through it, and creates a beautiful story kind of what life in New York City is slash the human condition. And it veers between serious insight and philosophy about existence and just humor, like just absolutely hilarious stuff. And it also, I worked in New York City for years, a lot of friends that lived there, used to stay there a lot of times. And it's like, the New York City lifestyle is just one in a million. Like you either love it or you hate it. I was never a huge fan of it. But like when you see the New York City lifestyle, it's just insane what people do. But there you go, 8 million people do it, right? So How to John Wilson. Each show has a different topic. And the first one is called Scaffolding, I believe. He's just talking about all the scaffolding in a city, which seems totally like, why do you want to watch it? It's amazing and just totally crazy. He did another one on wrapping your furniture in plastic, which is a very New York City thing. My grandmother had her furniture wrapped in plastic, and it's just a thing. And he just like does a whole story about that. He did another one I forgot what the other ones were, but go check it out. It's a series you're going to actually watch. You'll be entertained. You're going to learn something, and you'll kind of feel good at the end of it. Like it leaves you with a happy, elated feeling. So
Lovely.
that's yep.
So my thing of the week this week is a little bit more nerdy than that. Mine is Windows 10 on the Surface RT. If you're watching the video, you can see here that I am currently running the Windows 10 Mail app on my Surface RT. And if we minimize here, this is, of course, Windows 10. If we open up the Start menu, just to confirm it, that is indeed the Windows 10 Start menu. You can now put Windows 10 on the original Surface RT and Surface 2. Now, there are some caveats around this. One, it's extremely difficult to do, and you can brick your device. So I I'm not responsible for that if you go ahead and try to do it. There are tutorials online. You can follow them. Just search it up, Windows 10 on Surface RT or Surface 2. It requires lots of downloading and lots of flashing things and unlocking secure boot and doing all kinds of crazy things that, again, may brick your device, so be careful. And it's also not the latest version of Windows 10. It's actually quite an old version. This is from 2017. I believe it's RS. It's version 1703. So it's not it's technically out of support and stuff, and it's also not the RTM build. It's a preview build a little bit before it. But it still runs most of the Windows 10 apps as long as they're compiled for ARM32. Because if you remember, these original Surface devices, although they're ARM, they're not ARM64 like the Pro X and the new stuff. These are ARM32 devices. So most Windows 10 inbox apps are working. So as you can see here, I have things like Groove Music running, I have the new the Windows 10 Mail app, I have Microsoft Edge running, the old Microsoft Edge that is. I've also got Office 2013 running on here because that was compiled for ARM32 as well. And most UWP apps that were available on Windows 10 Mobile should run on here as well, because Windows 10 Mobile was an ARM32 platform as well. So the UWP apps should run. The UWP Office app should run. I have the new, what's it called? Let's see, the new OneNote app. I say new, the Windows 10 OneNote app, which is much more modern. That runs on here just fine, for example. And some third-party apps do as well. Like I have Twitter on here, and that's because it was on Windows 10 Mobile. It's the web app, and that just runs with no problem. But most apps won't work because they are either Intel or ARM64.
No new Edge. Right?
No new Edge. Yeah, you are still stuck with the old Edge, which, might I add, is an improvement over Internet Explorer, which is the only browser on Windows RT 8.1.
Sure.
One of the reasons why I wanted to do this was because I've been looking at ways of making Windows RT devices useful in this day and age. Because I have a Lenovo Yoga 11 down there, which is a laptop, but it runs Windows RT, so it's essentially useless outside of Office. But you should be able to update it to a build of Windows 10, which has Microsoft Edge, which is newer. It's still not the Chromium version of Edge, but it is a newer browser with much better web rendering support and whatnot. So you can squeeze a little bit more life out of it. But like I said, it's a risky thing to do because you can break your device. But it is also it's a Surface RT. Who's still using one of these as their main device in 2020? It's a side project for sure. But I've done it, and it works really nicely, I think. So, yeah, Windows 10 on the Surface RT. I know it's not you. This has been a thing you can do for a while, but I've only just gotten around to doing it, and I like what I see.
Very nice. Before we go, I just want to plug Brendan Lowery, one of our writers, did a really deep dive on Destiny 2's Deep Stone Crypt Raid. He wrote a whole guide on that. So Destiny's been getting some massive updates. I gotta get... this is my gaming thing, and I'm actually a huge Destiny 2 fan. I love Destiny 2, and I remember when it came out, and everybody, even Jez, was like, "It's basically just Destiny 1 again." And I'm like, "Yes, thank you." I like Destiny, but I haven't played it forever, so I gotta get behind. I'm so far behind on all these updates, but we have some amazing guides at Windows Central about how to go through all the different levels and the raids and all that kind of stuff. And the raids, I don't have enough friends that play. I don't have enough friends, but I also don't have enough friends that play Destiny 2. But raids are awesome. They're just such a it's just such a commitment. Like you get it because it's always like an hour or two. You're just like, all right, we're doing this. But it's very cool stuff. So go check that out. All right, we're gonna wrap up the podcast now. So
it's a long one today.
Yes. But I think it was noteworthy. We're going to do some Q&A now with the audience. If you guys have questions, fire them off in comments, whether it was topics we talked about, topics we didn't talk about, or just random things. We'll try to answer them. If you're listening to this recorded, of course, you don't get to hear that, but you're free to join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube/Windows Central, where we do a live video stream as well as the chat. You can also go watch the old streams there as well. You can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Still 1 month in now, 1 month, and I still have no access to my Twitter. So if you do message me, I'm probably not going to get it. But, someday maybe I'll get my Twitter account back. Still not that big of a deal for myself, but you can follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN, and he'll answer your questions, of course. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there with the holidays, and make sure you wear a mask and wash your hands. Keep your family safe. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. Awesome. So yes, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. We're not going to be hanging around for too long because it's incredibly late.
For Zach.
For me, yes. Will the Windows 10X inbox apps on ARM devices all be native? Yes. Is Project Latte coming to Windows 10X as well? Because that would make most sense in my opinion. I do not think so. It may eventually, but it won't be there at launch. No way.
Someone asked earlier, and we talked about this last week, but if someone is OS neutral, which by the way, there really is no one that's OS neutral. Like, unless you've never used a computer and you're just like, like everybody's going to have a preference at some point. I've talked about this endlessly before. Like, a lot of preferences for, like, Zach and I prefer Windows, mostly because we were just born and raised on Windows, right? Yeah. It's not like there was never a point, this is like choosing a religion. There's never a point like when we were 20, we just never seen an operating system. You put both in front of us and we both objectively evaluated what these operating systems can do and then chose. No one does that. So it's the same with cameras, it's the same with religions, it's the same with browsers. So no one's OS neutral. That said, let's assume you really are. Do you think the new MacBooks will pose a threat for premium Windows laptops? It offers power and longer battery life. No, I don't think so. The reason is I think people seem to forget MacBooks were never trashed, okay? MacBooks have always been the gold standard of what an Ultrabook should be. Every year they came out with reviews. The reviews were always stellar. No one ever said, they're slow dog machines with terrible battery life. They always said they could have better battery life. Like, again, but I find that, like, that's not an argument. There's not a single laptop in the world where you're like, whoa, that's too much battery. Dial it down, folks. I don't want that much battery. No one's ever used a laptop and said it was too fast. They don't need, why you got to make up? No, dial it down. So that's not a real argument. My point is, though, no one not bought a Mac because of performance or battery life. That was never a thing, right? You bought a Mac because you use the operating system. You had an iPhone, you had an iPad, you video edits, you use Final Cut, and you just like Apple. And it's what you had before. You had an old MacBook, you upgrade to a new MacBook. That's why they sell around 7 to 8% of all the PC market and not much more. But when you look at, like, I don't think saying something is faster as a processor is a selling point for most consumers. I don't know if that, because we see this with smartphones every year. Every year, poor reviewers have to go, the Snapdragon 865 Plus is now slightly faster than the 865. And most people are like, yeah, but what does that actually mean? Like when I'm checking my email and stuff like that. What's actually turned out, and Zach knows this, on smartphones is the refresh rate for the display has actually played a bigger role in perception of performance versus the actual chip itself. But I don't think, especially at the Ultrabook level, you're going to have some people, the enthusiasts, the people who are watching all the YouTube videos, the video editors, they're going to harp on this. But I don't think, listen, if you're using a Windows laptop and you're like big on Windows and you like Windows, you're not going to necessarily switch. Not to mention, a lot of people buy Windows laptops, as I mentioned earlier, before the form factor choices. Maybe you want a touchscreen. Maybe you want inking support. Maybe you want 4G LTE. Maybe you want one that's an X360 that folds back into a tablet. Maybe you want a Surface Pro design. Maybe you want the best of like what an iPad Pro is along with a Windows PC, like a Surface Pro X. Like, that's why people buy Windows devices. If you go buy a MacBook Air, like, okay, listen, it's nice hardware, but it's a straight up laptop, no touchscreen. And that's all you're going to be able to do. No LTE, no touch, no inking support, and you have a touch bar on the Pro. And for some people, that's a good thing. I don't think saying we have a faster processor. Listen, if a faster processor was all that mattered, all of you would have gone out and bought AMD laptops within the last 6 months. And I'm going to venture to guess most of you haven't. And I just did a review of the 11th Gen XPS 13 laptop. And I said it's significantly faster and better battery life. How many of you are going out right now dropping your XPS 13 you just bought in the spring for this new one, right? So these are nice advancements. They're not game-changing advancements, though. I think in the long term, and that's not crapping on what Apple's done. I think the M1 is an amazing chip. It's going to benefit them tremendously. They still need to solve the problem, though. How do you convert people from PC to Mac? Because that's not a big churn number, and I don't think it's going to change.
What does Surface Neo mean for Surface and Windows 10X? What does the Surface Neo delay, mean for Surface and Windows 10X? Will Microsoft not have a device launching with 10X? So I don't know for sure, but I would be surprised if there isn't something launching alongside 10X. I would guess the easy thing to do, of course, is just make the Surface Go and the Surface Laptop Go available with 10X as an option on the store page. There you go. There's your launch products for Windows 10X. I'd be surprised if there's dedicated hardware specific to it, at least at first. There might be eventually. Maybe there'll be a Pro X with 10X at some point. That'd be really nice. But we'll have to wait and see. Now that the Surface Duo has been out for a while, do you feel it's a success? Not so much in terms of mega sales, but in accomplishing Microsoft's goals. I think, excuse me, I think it's too early to tell, but I will say that I do feel more productive on this device. Because having two screens, especially when it just does things automatically, like when you tap on a link in one app and it opens on the other screen, you don't even think about it and you just do it, and then you realize after the fact that, oh, that actually was a way better experience. Wow. I've had that moment a few times now on this device. And I definitely almost always use it like this in two-screen mode or in single-screen mode. I never use it like a mini laptop or like a Nintendo DS. I've never found myself typing on it like that. So those sort of use cases, I think, are a little bit gimmicky in my opinion. But everything else, I think it's fantastic. I really do. I absolutely love it. My only complaints are it's a little bit too fragile. The plastic trim around the edges should have been metal. And also the glass on the back should have been like a matte glass or a mystic glass, as they call it these days, rather than the glossy glass that it is. Because, oh my God, all the fingerprints. So many. You mentioned earlier that Windows 10X is the new Windows 10S. I thought Windows 10X would be the future of Windows, and I thought that goal was to make a modern OS and emulate legacy apps. It is, but not at first. You have to keep in mind that Microsoft is taking a very measured approach to the launch of 10X. 10X... Sorry, excuse me. I will say that the positioning of 10X internally and indeed externally has changed significantly since this project first started. It was supposed to be the future of Windows, then a lot changed internally, and now right now it isn't. I'm sure they will get back to doing that, but they need to take a measured approach, especially with a pandemic and all of that stuff. They can't just launch 10X and then try to make it the best, the version of Windows. That would annoy a lot of their customers and partners, especially enterprises who still rely on legacy features and functionality inside Windows 10 that 10X simply no longer has. Over time, we will see 10X launch on more and more devices, more and more form factors, more and more price brackets. But at launch in 2021, it will be primarily for low to mid-range devices, targeting the same markets that Windows 10S kind of markets. In the future, that will change, but at first, that's what we're expecting 10X to be aimed at.
And just also a further point about the laptop stuff. It's like, you have to understand laptop sales are effectively a flat market.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't 15 years ago, 10 years ago, where we're all buying laptops as a new thing. Everybody has laptops now, and for most people, what they use them for, they're fine. So you don't see a lot of people like smartphones where it's like, oh, I got to get rid of my last year's laptop and get this year's laptop. Laptop sales are pretty flat. If you look at Apple's sales for the last 3 years, they're very flat. Consistent, but flat. It's not a growth category. We're seeing a little bit of growth this year because of the pandemic, and that's benefited actually Microsoft a lot as well as Google, and even Apple a little bit too. But it's not a growth category. It's not like wearables, which has a vertical. That can actually, there's a lot of people who want to get that. Smartphones are peaking too, but there is a little bit more of a built-in upgrade cycle. That has lengthened. It used to be 2 years. Now the average is nearly 3 years. but at least that's actually higher than laptops, which I believe tends to be 5 years. So because of this, it's just built in, and most people aren't buying new laptops all the time. So it's really hard now to change the industry, right? It's the same thing I pointed out before last week with iOS and Android in the United States. These are both great systems, but you're not seeing bleed over between the two categories. That is, if you're on Android, you're probably not going to switch to iOS. And if you're on iOS, you're almost definitely not likely going to switch to Android. And those audiences are just kind of built and locked in, which is why if you're Microsoft and you're trying to come in with your Windows Phone, good luck trying to win people over. So I don't think that's going to change. So that's why I think it's very hard to shift the needle in market share with laptops, unless there's some weird explosion that happens in the next year. But the idea that like tons of people are just going to buy new laptops this year, I think is, especially with the pandemic, it's not going to move the needle that much.
Can we expect a redesign of the Calibre brought with Big Sur compared to their previous versions on Mac with Sun Valley on Windows? I don't know if it will be that dramatic, but it will certainly be noticeable and significant compared to previous versions of Windows 10. It will be, as I've said, the biggest UI refresh we've seen on Windows 10 so far, because it's supposed to all be happening at once. But yes, I don't think it will be like a Big Sur type, as big as the Big Sur refresh or new design rather, because that's really a new design on Big Sur. It's not a new design on Windows 10. It's a refinement and a refresh of the existing UI, making it more consistent and more modern. So yes, we'll have to wait and see.
Someone's asking about Surface Duo 2 next year. Yeah, we Zach can.
Oh, that's right. That's the device I didn't mention, didn't I, in the thing? Yeah, the Surface. We are expecting a Surface Duo 2 in the fall of next year as well.
Speaking of, mine's making noises right now. I did, by the way, finally take off my Star Wars skin. Gone back to all au natural.
Nice. Nice.
I do like it like this. Yep.
Since Project Latte is aimed at the Microsoft Store, does that mean the store might get some refresh UI? Yes, maybe. I haven't heard that specifically, but if they are planning to add Android apps, well, not necessarily. They don't really have to update the Microsoft Store to do that. They just need to make sure it can list Android apps. But maybe we'll see a new UI. It would be nice, but I have not heard anything specific about that. Any updates on the Neo? No, unfortunately not. Last I heard is it could launch at the end of next year or the spring 2022 timeframe. But no, I have not heard anything specific about the hardware right now, unfortunately. I always wanted to try the HP Elite X3 and the laptop that came with it. I think I have both somewhere. That was a fun device. I loved my HP Elite X3.
It was a cool device,
Yeah.
way ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
The processor and the vision behind it, definitely not there. But the seeds of what they were trying to do, you're seeing it in current devices.
Yeah.
Microsoft always does that. People are so quick to be like, oh, Microsoft failed and they dropped that. But they learn from their mistakes and they, Windows 8 on RT, that was on ARM, Zach was just talking about that. NVIDIA, all that kind of stuff. That is not like, all right, they stopped that, and probably because Windows 8 itself wasn't very good. But it's not like they ditched that.
No,
right?
yeah.
That ARM stuff lived on, and that's why they were able to do Windows 10 on ARM later. So even when they do failures, they do learn from that, and we see those bits float up. We've brought up Kinect multiple times. Kinect was awesome for Xbox, but it was way ahead of its time, and the games didn't come out for it, but they took the Kinect technology, and that's what turned into Windows Hello, and now they're using Kinect with Azure for more of a industrial use. But they do learn from this and incorporate the technology in other ways. So.
Hey Dan, did you ever review the Surface Book 3 13.5? I remember you made a video about the SP3, but couldn't find it. I know it doesn't have a fan, but I don't really know exactly how that would impact everyday use.
I forgot. So no, I didn't review the 13-inch because they didn't send us that. I do like the 13-inch a lot. I forgot how the fan systems work on that. Isn't it? There's a fan in the base, but not the top part, I believe, right?
I think not in the entry level model, because the entry level model doesn't have a GPU.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't know. It's I love the Surface Book 3. The 13 is I think a great size. The 15 is awesome. It's a big laptop,
Mm.
but you're getting at least a GPU with it. Yeah, the thermals, the way book is designed is actually very effective for thermals because it's behind the display and the heat travels up. It's actually a smarter design versus a laptop where the heat's got to be really actively pushed out through the sides or the back, or the heat has to rise through the keyboard. You don't really get that with the Surface Book. Of course, there are other issues there. You're putting hot components behind a display, which is something no one else has to deal with. But yeah, I don't know. Next time we do Surface Book, I'll try to lean on Microsoft to get a 13-inch one. But yeah, we weren't going to go buy one just for a review.
Yeah. Can we expect consistent menus with Sun Valley? I think the plan is to make the UI as consistent as possible, so perhaps we will see that, yes. Can we expect ARM-based Surface Go to launch with 10X? I've not heard anything regarding an ARM-based Surface Go, unfortunately.
Any thoughts on an Xbox dongle and whether it'll run Chromecast? I don't think there's been any new rumors on that.
So I think this week there was news that Phil Spencer had mentioned that we'll see xCloud on TVs, but what I think he meant is via an app on smart TVs.
Got it. Yeah, so I think,
yeah,
you can imagine Samsung and Microsoft doing that,
Mm-hmm.
which would be awesome.
Yeah. Or LG,
cool
please
stuff.
LG. I like LG. I have LG TVs.
Now Samsung just needs to bring Cortana to my TV. Announcing Cortana, LG and Samsung. That'd be hilarious. What are the chances that Microsoft includes a basic cloud PC in Microsoft 365? I think that's the exact plan. I think that's exactly what will happen.
There might be an additional cost, or maybe it'll be included. I don't know, but it will be
think
part
they'll
of the
include it.
subscription. Yeah.
I think it'll be included, but there may be like limitations, amount of accounts, amount of data, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah.
Or the amount of RAM you have in the VM.
Oh yeah, when are you gonna try use Teams for streaming? Yeah,
we tried last week and it didn't work.
Yeah, we'll try maybe next week again to see. We didn't try this week, but yeah, we'll give it another go soon. Can we expect? Did we do this one the ARM-based Surface Go?
Yeah,
to
I
launch
said
with
we've
10X?
not heard anything.
Yeah,
but it's unlikely, I think.
Yeah, I just don't see them swapping out a processor into an existing line. Just don't see that happening. As much as I would love it, I don't see it happening. Is someone finally in charge of the store at Microsoft? I don't believe so, but they should just give that to the Xbox team. That said, the store is like, it gets updated, like both as an app, but also in terms of layout. And, I'm looking at it right now, especially the entertainment section. Bing also sends me an email and they update with the movies and all that kind of stuff. There's definitely an active push there. Every week I go through the entertainment stuff to see if movies are on sale and if something I can buy it preferably at 4K.
Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back same time next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated on when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.